Hello! Behind me here is a Rover Metro, one of the cutest cars you could possibly sit inside. It's got a cute little face. It has steam coming out of the vents because the engine's warm. It has grommets for left-hand drive, should you want to swap that bit over, which you probably wouldn't. From the back end, if you was to hide a couple of little bits of detail, you could end up thinking that this was actually an Austin Metro rather than a Rover 100. But there are some subtle differences, such as the bumper and the registration plate clearly telling you it's a 1995 car, and that it says 111i there rather than Metro. Plus the Metro had a slightly shorter bonnet on it. And as cute as this car may be, it doesn't look like Ronnie Corbett's. You think I'm joking, don't you? The Metro did look like Ronnie Corbett, whereas this looks more like Thora Hird. It is still very much a Metro though, even though it's not called a Metro any longer. It wasn't called a Metro, it's called a Rover 100. 13-inch wheels that are rather skinny at 155. The same lines along the side that it had when it first came out of the factory in 1980. This old handle, look at that there. And a little hole there where you can put your key in to open up the door. The fuel filler cap, there's no flap on there. It used to be there. Look, drainage that takes you from one end of the car to the other. A windscreen that isn't bonded to the body. This one has a K-series engine rather than the old A-series. But look at the state of me.
You do the voiceover, I will demonstrate.
Right, okay. There's the key, and that shall be inserted into the key plug hole thing there, and then turned clockwise by 180 degrees, and then the boot can be opened. In the boot we don't find a proper carpet, but just this. And then, what did you say, jerry-rigged? This looks like somebody's just put that in there with their own set of tools, but in fact it came out of the factory just like that. That's not nice plastic. The height of that sill is one which will encourage you to trip and fall on your face if you're not careful. For the size of the door, it's not particularly heavy. We have these lovely patterns on there, and of course the wind down operated window. That's nice. Not him, this. And it's surprisingly spacious inside, certainly from the point of view of being the driver, because look, there is some headroom and an old style headlining that isn't drooping, which is nice to see. The dashboard looks very, very dated indeed, but it is nice to have a nice little mat there. And the materials aren't actually horrible like I was expecting. Original radio, buttons, one button that presses OK, fans. That's a bit like just operating a Smartie. This here is also very, very dated. By the time this car had come out, they were already exceedingly old cars. In fact, the Metro itself wasn't really an advanced car, except for possibly the suspension. But the steering wheel, although it looks out of place, is actually quite nice. And we have a carpet as well, a proper carpet, and somewhere to keep your tapes, of which you can store 5. Now if I move the seat ever so slightly forward here to my position, which is only that, about an inch further than what it was, we can still see in the back there isn't really any room for any adults. But this isn't a small car, it's a diddy car. It's narrow, it's short. Yep. As we can see, there is no rev counter, so you're going to have to use your understanding of the sound of the engine to know whether you're over revving it or not. Potentially 3 more buttons. What could those be? Aircon, front fog, and there is no reach and rake with the steering wheel, and the pedals are really far too close together. And as I've just found out, if you try and drive it with work boots on, you're going to be pressing the accelerator pedal when you mean to press the brake. So I'm going to have to change those before I dare go for a drive anywhere. Smaller shoes for a smaller car. Oh, hang on. No power steering. You don't really need it on a car this size, of course, with its tiny little body and its small engine at the front. But it still feels quite heavy unless you're actually on the move. And off we go through the gates of the 1.1 litre K-Series engine, which I haven't even opened the bonnet of to have a look at, but I presume it's a single cab. Gosh, it's bouncy. Well, I must say it's actually quite a raughty little thing. It's got a lovely raspy sound to it. It feels all eager and joyous and one of those. The brakes are very good though. And the first turn we're going to take is just here, where we find out the steering is reasonably quick, but just a little bit on the heavy side. It actually sounds a bit more like a Mini. It kind of bobs up and down a little bit, which is an unexpected characteristic, which again makes it feel like a Mini as well. That'll be down to its hydrogas suspension, which is comfortable but also rather excitable, like a Tigger on Smarties. Waiting at the traffic lights, of course, is much the same as it is in any other car, except that you're closer to your passenger. Off we go. And look at that, it's actually making me smile, even though we're barely doing 40 miles per hour. Just down to the characteristics of how it feels. The steering's actually rather sharp. Is it an R65 gearbox as well? I think it is.
Yeah.
It feels like an R65. It feels familiar. In fact, the whole thing feels familiar. It just feels like a small 25, but maybe not quite as refined. What about the way it handles? Should we fling it around the corner in the wet? Well, I don't think the levels of grip are going to be that great on these skinny tyres, but it certainly does feel happy to do it. I believe the R3, which became the 25, was supposed to be the direct replacement for this, but the way that Rover did their business, it never really worked out like that. These are not known for a particularly good safety record, but to drive it, it actually feels like you're going to be okay. And the main thing is, as long as you don't crash it, then you're just as safe as what you would be in any other car. You are safer in a small, crumply car that you don't crash than a big, safe car that you do crash. Remember that one. That's a good tip. As a conclusion to this, I've got to say I really do like this car. It's so full of character. It's such a joyous thing to be in. Even from the way the suspension works, where it kind of bounces up and down like that. It feels like old style driving, and old style driving is always the best style driving. Although this car is actually the Rover 100 series, it is still really a Metro, isn't it? Designed originally by a man called David Batche, responsible for other Rovers such as the SD1. Apparently, he loved Ronnie Corbett. If you was to be blindfolded and then bundled into the driver's seat of this car, you would know from the first corner you went around that you was indeed driving a Rover of some description. I'm not doing this test drive alone. Boaty's coming with me because he's brought the car along, and we're on our way out. Let's go and get some lunch. That's not relevant to the car review, so I probably won't put that bit in there. Not unless I'm desperate for time. If I get to the end of the video and I think, well, you know, it's only 5 minutes long, I best put something else in. That's why this bit's at the end. Well,
That was a funeral.
I don't have to cross my fingers. I'm not.
You do. You have to cross your fingers until you see a dog.
No, you do. I don't.
Everybody does.
I'm driving the car to talk about the car, not a bloody funeral.
Well, drive it with your fingers crossed. Otherwise bad luck will happen to
You
you.
won't see any dogs out of this. Well, you might do. That looks like a claw, doesn't it?